Hello, everyone. My name is Bill Spencer. I'm a Senior Director on Microsoft Teams Engineering, and I'm pleased today to have Jessica Meets from WM Reply, who has built a very cool sports team app for a professional sports team. And this is part of the solutions that customers are building on Microsoft Teams with the help of partners like WM Reply. And if you are interested in this particular solution, please follow up with your Microsoft account team or with Jessica herself, and I will put her contact information in the chat box, and also Jessica has it on the slides. We will make this recording available to all the registered users after the event. So with that, please take it away, Jessica.
Thank you, Bill. In terms of what I'm going to talk about, as Bill said, it was an app built for a professional sports team. And in terms of their requirements, the things they were after, the absolute key requirement was to allow predominantly players, but also coaches and other people that were traveling with the team to be able to plan their days, to be able to see their schedule, to know when they were traveling out for a game, where they were meant to be at any given time. And it had to be easy and intuitive and available on mobile devices for people who do not on a regular basis use Microsoft Office tools and products. It had to be something they could pick up and get started straight away. So that was the need for the players. And from a back office perspective, the operations team needed to be able to give the schedules, update them, figure out where people needed to be, manage the upcoming trips, but also have a space for sharing of information, sharing of documents and resources and notes, and a collaboration space behind the scenes. And one of the key things was to have privacy as an option. So a lot of the activities in the schedule would be visible to everybody. So if the team's going out to play a game, everybody's going to know when that is. But if somebody's got, say, a physio appointment or a medical health check, all of that stuff needs to be locked down and private and only visible to the people involved. So we needed to make sure it was as easy as possible for the players to see the stuff that was theirs, but so that they couldn't see the private stuff for other people. So those were the key core requirements we went in with. There were a number of other ideas and other bits of functionality, other bells and whistles, as it were, that were included in the plan. Not all of these actually made it into the final version we deployed for the team. But these were things that we built and that were included into the demo later. So the demo you'll see in a little bit, we've built on our own demonstration platform with fake data, so we could actually put in the bits that didn't make the final cut, because one of the goals from the, as I say in the previous one, was keeping it simple. So in the end we actually stripped it down to the bare basics, but the things that we can also have in there are things like flight trackers. So if you're a fancy team at the top of the leagues, you might be flying on private jets everywhere. But if you're slightly lower down the rankings, you might be taking commercial flights, and actually being able to click on a button and see what's the status of your flight. Is it on time? Is it delayed? That can be a really useful feature. So we've got this option where we're actually hooking into somebody else's flight tracker system that's just publicly available. And we're able to surface that into the app. We also have destination pages. So the idea behind this was a wiki-like experience where the players could see information about the cities that they were going to, but also potentially add comments or make edits with their own suggestions of, oh, this was a really great restaurant, or here's something to go and see while you're there. So the destination pages were intended to be something that was sort of free and open, as opposed to the lockdown schedule. And then there were other bits of information that we could surface around who are the referees for the games and what are the stats for the players. And of all of those, the only one which isn't in the demo system is the referee information. In terms of what we built, so Bill mentioned this earlier, this was built on sort of the Microsoft stack, and the back end is based on SharePoint, so SharePoint Online, and this is where we're storing the information about upcoming trips, the itineraries, all of the events, any announcements and news that they want to push out to players. All of that is sitting in SharePoint sites. We then have a Viva Connections dashboard, and this is where we've created nice visuals, quick cards, simple views, and this is what the players would be seeing when they interact with the system, and all of that is surfaced through Teams, through the out-of-the-box connections between Viva and Teams. So the end users can open Teams in a mobile device and see all of these interactive cards. And behind the scenes, the bits that hardly anybody will ever go and look at is a little bit of automation, which is managing the privacy requirement. So there is a tick box that the operations staff, the admin staff can tick on and say, this is meant to be private. And a little workflow runs in the back end to restrict access only to the people who are on the attendees list. So nobody else can see that that's even there. So a little bit of automation and the rest of it using SharePoint and Viva. In terms of what the back end looks like, if you are familiar with SharePoint at all, it looks like a SharePoint site because that's exactly what it is. We stuck with the out-of-the-box functionality. We worked very hard to keep it as straightforward as possible and to make it future-proof. We didn't want to be spending all this time customizing the native functionality of SharePoint because one of the benefits of Office 365 is it updates frequently. So by using the out-of-the-box tools, you'll get the benefits of the updates when they come in. So we have a simple page where you can go in and you can see what are the trips that are coming up soon, what's the schedule, and nice, simple, intuitive buttons for the most common actions. And from a front end, I've blocked out the Teams logo there, but you have information on where you need to be, what's coming up in the next few days, what's the itinerary for the next trips you're booked on. So the schedule was the central piece. That is the most obvious thing you see when you open the app, and that is the center of the whole functionality. So as I said earlier, we've built this solution on a demonstration tenant. So all of the data is faked for the sake of being able to show what the functionality is, and it's not linked to anything to do with the real team.
Thank you so much, Jessica. Yeah.
To launch the Player Hub, you simply need to launch Teams, and this is what the players will see when they first open it up. We made it so that the hub was front and center, and the first thing you see right at the top of the screen is what the next thing in your schedule is. This is the thing you need to be doing now. So I can see that here I have interview prep as the next thing in my schedule. I can see when it is, and I can press on it and get more information. We have the time and location details up at the top, and then there's a space for the person who created the event to write in a description or provide additional information as is needed. Coming back to the main screen, I can see what I have upcoming, and I can use the next and back buttons to navigate through my upcoming items. But if I press on this card, I also get a summary of the next few days. So I can look at today and I can look at a few days in the future and see what are the things I have going on those days. Like before, I could click on one and get more information, like from the home screen, but also if I come out of that and go down the screen, the next thing I see are my upcoming trips. So these are the itineraries to go out to play games, and I can again use next and back buttons to navigate between them and see what trips are happening when. And when I press on one of these, I see the details for that trip. I see these nice little icons that let you see at a glance what type of activity a thing is. And like before, I can press on one of these and get the details. At the top of the screen, I also have some buttons to give me more information about the trip. If I press on destination, I get taken to a SharePoint page with information about the city in question, places to eat, things to do, things like that. But I also have some buttons for the flight tracker. In order to do this, we just linked out to a publicly available flight tracker site that is in no way affiliated or connected to this at all. It just worked because we could plug in the date and the flight number of a particular trip, and that would give us information on what the status of that flight is it on time, any delays or notifications. So we can surface that through the app in a very simple way by making use of a website that already exists. Further down the screen, I have some other information, so I can see the stats for the current logged in player, and I can also see news and information that may have been put out there by the back office staff. The main focus, though, as I said, is this itinerary information, it's the schedule information. This is the thing we need you to be doing next, so that is what is front and centre. From the back end, most of the management happens from this SharePoint site. I can see what the upcoming trips are, what the next schedule items are in the calendar, and I've got these nice simple buttons for managing these things. If I want to create a new schedule item, I can just click on the nice big button and it gives me this simple form to fill out. So I can give it a title, I can give it a location, I can give it a start and end time and a description as if I want. I can also categorize it. So this doesn't actually show up on the app, but it's used in the back end for things like reporting. So I can come in and decide what this should be. I've also got various calendar type settings, like should this be an all-day event? Should this recur? If I want to make something a repeating event, I can do. We also have the option to make something private. There's a Power Automate workflow behind the scenes that looks at this little checkbox, and if it's selected, restricts the people who can see it only to those who are in the attendees list or who are in a particularly high level administration role within the site. So whether something shows up on the app is actually based on whether the person using the app is in this attendees group for an item, but the private tag actually restricts it at a permissions level. So even if they come to the SharePoint site or search or look for it another way, they're not going to stumble across something they're not meant to see. So that little private tag triggers a workflow without the back office staff having to go in and manually manage permissions for items. They can just tick a tick box and the workflow handles it for them. There are a couple of other little check boxes that are worth noting here. So one is the travel type, and this is used for items that show up in the itinerary, and this is what controls what shows up in those icons. So if I select bus, you get the little emoji of a bus. If I select plane, you get an emoji of a plane. And we can also pick the trip that this is to do with. So this is generated from another SharePoint list, which I'll show in a second. And I can say, yeah, this is to do with this particular trip. And so it will show up on the itinerary for that trip. If I were to leave this trip blank, it would still show up in the schedule, but it wouldn't be associated with any trip, so it wouldn't be associated with any of the itineraries. When I'm done, I can just save that, and that adds it to the calendar. Managing of the trips is also just a SharePoint list, so I've got a summary of the upcoming ones on the homepage, but if I click See All or click Trips from the left-hand navigation, I can see more of that information. I can see all of the trips past and future. and I can edit things, I can add things to here and put in the name for the trip, the date that it's happening, which city is it going to, and the flight numbers to then be used by the flight tracker. So again, keeping it nice and simple for the back office staff. I don't have to worry about the whole flight tracker app. I just have to put a number into a field, and that will make it then work in the app. So keeping it as simple as possible for the back office staff. Other things on here are the player stats list, so you can go in and edit those. And if they want to, this is still a SharePoint site, so they can use this to store documents, notes, other information that they want to use within that back office staff group. Back office staff. Other things on here are the player stats list, so you can go in and edit those. And if they want to, this is still a SharePoint site, so they can use this to store documents, notes, other information that they want to use within that back office staff group.
Great. I think we are finished with the demo. I hope I'm not
Yep.
speaking over the last bit. This is such a powerful solution that shows how Teams, SharePoint, Viva Connections can all work together to create something so powerful and elegant and relatively simple for both the players and the staff. So Jessica, we had a question I wanted to hear from you, which is this, I'm just quoting now, is this an actual app or is this a way of using the Viva Connections app?
It's a way of using the Viva Connections app.
Excellent. And audience, I'm just posting here. If you have similar questions, we'll have Q&A in a moment. I think you had a couple more slides, didn't you, Jessica?
Yes, so I've got a couple of points on the architecture. So I alluded to this earlier when I talked about sort of the components of it and how we built it. Effectively, the front end is that Viva dashboard view. So that's what the players would see, that's what the coaches would see through their mobile devices. There were actually 3 SharePoint sites in total that we used for this. So the SharePoint home site, which is if you've tried to deploy Viva Connections yet, that's where that gets deployed to. And it's also where any news and announcements get created. The player hub site is what was shown in the demo. So this is where the trip list and the schedule information is kept, as well as the back office admin information. And then the destination site. And the reason we made that a separate site was to allow that to be editable by everybody. So effectively, each of the possible destination cities gets a page. And if the players want to, they can go in and add their own information there. I'm not sure how much that has actually happened. And then the private flow behind the scenes, which is one of those things that that hardly anybody will ever go and look at. In terms of the highlights and the learnings, we built this entire thing in about a month because the team wanted to have it ready to go before game season started. So we had about a month between being brought on board and the deadline that everything needed to be finished by, which is quite a tight time frame for any project. So keep it simple was both a design ethos in terms of making it simple for the players, but also from a technical perspective, we couldn't overcomplicate things. We had to make things straightforward. So a lot of what we did was utilizing the out-of-the-box tools. So the Viva cards are using out-of-the-box template because we were going, okay, what do you need to do? What are the template options? Which one is the best fit to achieve the end goal? And we stuck with those tools in order to have something built fast. And then the fourth one I have on my highlight slide is the emojis, which was actually not my idea. We had another colleague on the project who came up with this, and it was just a brilliant moment of insight as to how we could achieve this, because the first time we showed the operations team, the back office staff, the schedule view, the first reaction was, it's a little bit dull. And they wanted a way to visually differentiate between the different elements and be able to show this is to do with the travel, this is to do with the game, this is to do with stuff with the hotel. And they wanted a way to visually indicate that. But we were also trying to fit within the templates that were available quickly. But emojis are treated like text. So when you have a phone or a technology system, as far as it is concerned, under the covers in the plumbing, emoji is a text character. So we were able to attach these little images, these icons, while being treated by text. So we effectively got the simplicity of text with the visuals of an image, which was a really great way of actually being able to achieve something that in the end the team were loved, without having to overcomplicate things or delay anything. So that was one of those little moments which can make a project, especially when working on these timeframes. But yeah, in terms of the stuff I wanted to talk about, that was my presentation, and we do still have time for more questions. I don't know, Bill, if there have been any more in the chat.
There hasn't been yet, so I encourage people to put in any additional questions. But some of the questions that came in earlier include, you talked to timing, which is great. What do you think it would take to repeat it? What do you think the cost might be to repeat it? And how did you work with Microsoft on the funding of this for this team?
So repeating it would be pretty simple if it's a like for like. So if we took the functionality we've already built, we would need to go and create the SharePoint sites. We would need to deploy the cards to the Viva Connections app, but that wouldn't be a complicated process. So we did the first build in a month. We could do a deployment of like for like in less than that, with a bit of time taken to tweak the logos on the buttons and the labels on things. Probably the longest bit would be configuring the Power Automate workflow.
Yeah.
And those are not the most complicated workflows in the world. In terms of how much it would cost, we would work based on the day count. So I wouldn't want to give a number on a webinar like this, but as I said, it was less than a month, so you'd be talking sort of 20 days maximum on a sort of per day rate. But one of the nice things about this is it is flexible. We can go in and make changes. So things like, as I said, the flight tracker, some teams that will be really useful, other teams maybe not so much. So we can tweak it. We can consider what else do you want in there. So what I would expect to do is less deploying it as identical, but starting with the conversation of, this is where we're starting from. Is there anything you would want to add or take away? And let's build to that, but we'd still be talking similar timeframes. And in terms of the Microsoft funding, this was something. So Microsoft did the initial envisioning call to come up with a fairly basic design map. We then took that, and the end result looked somewhat similar to the design, because of course once you start building things, people change their minds about what they need. So it never ends up being identical. But that the time there was a pot of ESIF funding from Microsoft that covered the initial build part.
Right. So just to state that there is limited funding for a limited time. So if people are interested in pursuing this, please follow up with your Microsoft account team and or Jessica directly. I put her email. You can see it there on the slide, but also I put it in chat. So please do follow up quickly if you're interested in support from Microsoft. But I think this solution from Jessica's team at WM Reply is a great example of potential solutions that can be pulled together relatively quickly and have a significant impact on the bottom line, on the collaboration, the effectiveness of an organization. And this sports team, I know, has really felt that it's been very helpful. They started with one of the minor leagues, and now they've moved it up to the main professional sports team. So that's another strategy if it's timing is such that it'd be easier to do it with one of the feeder teams as opposed to the main team. I'm going to check one more time for questions and not seeing any. Any last comments, Jessica, in terms of your insights or thoughts on the solution?
I think the other thought is we actually started building this before Viva Connections officially launched. So we started on the sort of pre-release preview version. And given the attention that Microsoft have been putting on the Viva toolset, I would not be surprised to find more capabilities coming quickly. I won't make promises on Microsoft's behalf, but in terms of what we can do with this, I think it's only going to get better.
Yeah, no, that's really true. I think this is a good example of what can already be done, and I know that there's more infrastructure and scaffolding for even richer feature capabilities available now and coming over time, because Microsoft is putting a lot of strategic weight and development effort behind Viva and Teams, and working with this is a great example of a frontline worker application. Well, great. Not hearing any additional questions, I'm going to thank you all, Jessica in particular, but also everyone in the audience for attending. And as I mentioned, I'll be making this video available to all registered users. Please feel free to forward within your organization so others can watch the great solution that WM Reply created. And hopefully there will be other sports teams using this application. I guess as a minor note, this actually replaced, and it was a significant upgrade, as I understand, from an application that they were specifically licensed previously. So they felt that this not only improved their processes and met their needs more specifically, but also cost them less, which is great. So saving money and improving productivity and collaboration are all great things. And I thank the WM Reply team for doing such a great job on this. And I know if there's future iterations, it will only get better. Thank you again, Jessica. Appreciate it. Thanks all. Appreciate you joining.